The tiny, which is for I don't know if you did a little research on the tiny, but basically Mayor Bloomberg initiated this effort in making super small apartments that's below the typical size standard of New York zoning building code, and it's targeted to a specific population that probably are doctors in their areas, and they are mostly working outside of home, and they are really just here to sleep. And then the housing in New York is super expensive, as you know, similar to Seoul.
Yeah.
It's more and more than Seoul.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
About 5 times.
Maybe 5 times the same
Really?
area.
New York?
New York is more expensive? I thought Seoul is more expensive.
No.
But if you look at the income level, like compared to that, the percentage of how much people spend on housing is very high.
But it's also, it was a test from the city because the minimum size of an apartment by code is 450 square feet. And this was the question from the city: what if we let go of this regulation? We can make something smaller. So it was a test for them.
We're curious, how did you define the minimum size of the
It was driven by actually by code, not the code of the unit, but the code of the room, every single room.
Like basically the distance between the toilet and the wall, like fixtures, and so like all this distance are legal. But for us, at least, it was very important to also provide a certain level of qualities, even when you reduce the quantity, the size, but the quality should not be sacrificed. So we use the student population who are more transient and they're more forgiving in terms of condition and more kind of exploratory in terms of how you live in urban settings, and then we use that population to revitalize the area. So it wasn't strictly rental.
Here you see the the blue shows minimum sizing of everything by law. So this is literally, I think there was one. This is the only space there that is extra. You see the whole, the one where the 2 squares are not meeting. So right there, so that's the only wasted space.
It's really like a puzzle, Chinese puzzle.
But I think there was a very strong relationship between the design and the financial structure behind it. Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with how low-income housing is structured in the US, but basically if a developer, private developer, now every low-income housing is developed through a private development, and so the developer will be held accountable to deliver a certain percentage of low-income housing for a certain period of time, and then they get tax break. So nowadays, almost every private development has to have a certain amount of low-income housing
Yeah,
to
by
be
law.
able to law, just to be able to even make the math work, because it costs so much to build. If you don't get that tax credit, it's almost impossible to make it profitable unless you produce a super high-end, like this Fifth Avenue pencil towers, where you sell it for $90 million. So it's only those 2 models that's viable. One is a kind of mixed, low-income subsidized housing with kind of market rate housing together, and then you lower your kind of cost by that way, by the tax break, or you sell it to the super rich and super high markup. There's nothing really in the middle that you can make it financially viable.
This is still a little bit bigger.
These people are also bigger. And they moved from the suburban.
I mean, here people still think a good house is a big house. So I think we tried very much to find quality in light and in the relationship to the outside. So what we try to do here is get rid of the double-loaded corridors so that you have light on both sides. I think you can have a small house if you have light on both sides. So this is what we try to do. This is a typical way of doing it.
Yeah.
But because there's only 6 houses per floor, it doesn't feel very like anonymous. You have some sort of community maybe, right? Some sort of people and neighbors, It's not like your unit is small, but you have shared roof terrace, shared. We had a big shared working space, like a like shared workspace, bike parking, extra storage. So and so we, rather than putting all these things in the unit, we put them in the building and share.
So this kind of how many people spaces, what is the most important?
For us, we try to make things where you feel some sort of relationship to the outside. So I think both the party wall and dining are very slim, right? So you're almost living in the facade or in the outside, and then we use and there it had much more also to do with the change of the urban plan, because suddenly you get an alleyway that goes through the city. Yeah.
Hours related to each other. So we wanted to do something also that does not block completely that relationship. That's why, if you see the renderings, even the way the facade is articulated, is outside. But basically we were trying to keep it as thin as possible so that you can almost see through the building. And so you can see the facade, how it's treated. There's a certain transparency of this building. It's this skinny piece that you can see through, because it's very shallow.
Yeah.
And so process for the process which you control the work.
Design-wise?
A working process with this is which you
So when you
Construction or design or
construction.
yes,
Well, architecture is different
everywhere.
everywhere.
But I think the US in general, and it's not the news to anyone. It's much more liability and code and rule driven, because of the liability is very high, it's very heavily legalized condition. So the construction process, design process, it's quite
Regulated.
yeah, and that's why I think it's more consistent as a city fabric, but also it gives it very little flexibility in exploring the uniforms. For example, in Tokyo, you don't have that. People can do whatever they want, and there's not much. It's not completely cheap, but much better than.
No, but I think it's the difference between it has to do with product versus craft. Meaning, I think the way you make things, I think there's more craftspeople, let's say in Korea, where you work on the site with the craftsperson. Whereas here, because of the legal issues, you can only work with products that already exist and have tested and have insurance. And so it's more like you pick things from a catalog and put it together from a catalog here. Whereas I think in Korea, at least with Kupcha, we could make things with the people there, and that's a different thing. And it would be impossible to make that here. Nobody would insure.
I mean, here basically everything you build in the building, you put in the building, someone has to guarantee it, right? So if it's not a manufacturer,
Who's
but still,
responsible? If it breaks, who's
contractor.
responsible?
So everything's passed.
In Korea, everybody is responsible. No, but so it was nice with the contract. So, contract in the United States is this thing, right?
Yeah.
Any project, there's such a contract. You think of everything that can go wrong, and you decide before you start. In Korea, we didn't have a contract.
Really?
I mean, there's
Because anyway, you have to work, right?
It's like a
one page. So like, and she didn't sign. No, because you have to do it, right? So that's the contract. The contract is if you start this, you finish. So this is a different culture.
This is maybe our last question and a little bit philosophical. What is your concept of home?
Home.
It's interesting. Now we're renovating our own house for the first time in our
Oh,
life.
really?
And we're constantly asking ourselves that question as well. I think that home is different than
House.
when you
Yeah.
buy an apartment. Right?
Yeah.
When you sell something, that's why I think for us it's a little bit difficult because do a condo, for example, like you have to sell a product to a lot of people, and you have to say, okay, do people like marble counters? And like that's very different a discussion because when you're designing the product, then designing a space where certain people live there, and you know the people, and you know what kind of activities happen, what kind of kids they have, what's the relationship between work and private life for these people. I think we're designing 2 private homes at this moment, and then it's a very different relationship. You're designing again a space that has a specific relationship with the person. And I think the way finishes come out and the way how a space feels and the home feels as a collection of materials and the light qualities is also very specific to that person. There's one.
I also think the home now we have 2 kids. And, a home is also being away a little bit from architecture. Meaning we're doing our own house, and we thought maybe we don't do architecture. Because we need the space. So this is a very big question.
No, but I don't.
Jing's,
I think we are thinking very much.
too much.
No, I'm not kidding, no?
Jing's father said this is the most difficult project. Your own house.
It's also about like, okay, we don't have so much money investing, putting here, but that doesn't mean that the architecture doesn't exist. It's still like what's important for us. We thought that the start is quite important because it's quite run-down area. It's going to be the first building that has some kind of architectural considerations, maybe. But maybe not necessary too, because some other buildings have a very different taste. They also thought a lot about how it looks. But it's nice to add different kind of things in that neighborhood. We also thought about how to make the interior as stripped down as possible. There's no marble, there's no fancy wood, nothing. And how do you make a space that's very elemental? So I think it's, we don't have a style that we can market. Like, okay, this is the soil apartments that we can sell them for X amount of money. But I think the architecture thinking is always there about that specific relationship.
Light. I think we try to, because it's an existing house. It's very small. Our place for 4 people. It's big enough. But we try to get it more light, basically more light into the house. That's the main thing. So again, I think we're making it more open than it is now. Yeah. And there's a garden, which is very nice.
Outside space.
Only problem is it's next to the highway, so it's very loud in the garden. Yeah, I think again the inside, the outside does remain.
Well, I think it's also because we're very urban. We both grew up and lived in very urban areas. It's very important